And by the time he came back to do this, I was a huge fan of like Welcome to the After Future, and to this day, I think it's one of the best albums ever made. I had very little to do with any of that record, but as a fan, like one of my favorite albums ever made to this day. Um, and so by the time he came back, I had already kind of felt that way. I was super impressed, and so I remember him um, being really cool to me, because I was probably really cool to him, and we got along really well and hit it off during those sessions. And like I had said before, there were a lot of pressures, it seemed, on him in terms of getting things done on time. Certain artists, their schedules would fluctuate. So somebody was supposed to be in a session on Tuesday, but they couldn't make it and they're not coming until next Saturday. So now he's got this Tuesday time. He's got to scramble and figure out other things to do with that time to keep the record on track. Like these sorts of pressures were there during the recording process of this album. And I learned, I wouldn't say I learned, that's the wrong way to say it. I moved into the role of, sort of being a confidence booster, and I did that naturally because I really cared about the project and I cared about his music because I was such a huge fan of After Future that I wanted this to work. And, you know, I can't get in his head and I can't speak for him and I wouldn't want to, but I think, like all of us, there are different doubts that come into mind
For sure.
when you're making something. And I feel like those were there at different times for him, at different times of this process. And I was always trying to be like, no, this shit is dope. This is really dope. Like, let's keep going. And I've done that for other artists and other points of their careers. And like I said in the last episode, as an engineer, like I was strictly told, do not give comments unless you're asked for. And when that door is open, if I actually believe it, I will encourage people and be part of that process. And I feel like that relationship for me, is the reason why I ended up basically being awarded, an executive producer credit on the record. And it meant a lot to me, not because I was really making executive decisions on the record, because I wasn't. That's not what that was.
Right.
That was an acknowledgement of my relevance to those sessions and that the aid that I gave, first of all, bust on my ass recording that thing, and second of all, all night and all the other shit that I would do, and and just my positive attitude that I had about it, and I still have it somewhere, like at the like that. What's funny is like these were so close, like After Future's physical product came in like just before, so like there were copies of like the album around, and I remember he signed a CD for me and like wrote like thank you for Infesticons or something like that, like on the After Future sleeve, and like signed it and shit. And like he was super cool to me, man. And as my career continued, the DNA that was sort of implanted in me by his approach to music and production, and not just beat making production, but production, like because he was a producer of this record. He did some coaching to some of the artists. No, it should be this, it should be that, what I mean, like the constructive stuff to
Right.
some of the artists, and guided them to the concept in the studio and guided them to the performance for the beats. Because remember, these beats were unorthodox at the time, even for poets, so like there had to be like, no, the rhythm is like this, or you know what I mean, like that sort
Right.
of like interaction took place, I'm sure. And I learned so much from this project. And like I said, like there were things that I took directly that I from day one, as soon as this project was over, I learned something and I kept doing it. And then there were other things that 20 years later I'm like, oh shit, I did that because of this. Like, and every artist I think goes through that. Influence is a tricky thing. Influence can be direct, it could be front loaded, or influence could be subliminal and backloaded. And I just that's sort of like where I was, and that's where I am, I should say, with this record. And you know, that producer credit, that executive producer credit, gave me like so much confidence, um, and really made me feel accepted, and seen for what I was doing, not just on this
Right.
record, but in general as an engineer. And I think that respect, really helped me, and it helped me garner more respect for more people, because what you give, you get. So that was definitely a big moment for me. You
Well,
know.
and it's a huge way to say thank you, and like you said, it's a tangible form of acknowledgement for
Yeah.
your for your work and your passion. Because uh,
I mean, it's such a
sometimes
great gesture, for a young person to give to another young person. Again, like, we're both well below 30, not, you know, full grown adults, I would think. I can't speak for him, but like, what a great gesture for a young man to do. I could say that now that I'm like, 42. But,
right.
but like, what an amazing thing to do for somebody. That's fucking awesome. I wish I was that nice.